Big game at St James's Park, Newcastle United against Manchester United. We're going to talk about it on ESPN's Football Forecast. My name is James Allcott. That's Nubaid Haroon. He's always with me every single time, and it's just great fun to have him here. And Stephen McInerney. Welcome.
Hello.
We're going to talk about the arch nemesis that is Man United for you, first and foremost, as a Manchester City fan. And in terms of that sort of reference point, Man City, of course, have gone past Man United in several aspects of football. Is that nice to hear? There you go. Yeah, we'll welcome you in. Yeah, the water's lovely and warm. When it comes to Newcastle and Man United, before we get into the game itself, there's a moment, I would imagine, as a Man City fan, where you're like, oh, we're going past you now, or we've gone past you. Yeah. For Newcastle United, with obviously a lot of injuries, but the style of play, the ability to keep going, being, in the Champions League and, going blow for blow with a group of death and all those things, and then recent results even against Manchester United, absolutely pumped them in the EFL Cup with a team that didn't have many players. Do you feel like Newcastle United are getting close to that moment or that tipping point of going past Man United, who've had such difficulty?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, when City sort of eclipsed or definitely staked a claim for being the dominant team in Manchester, United were a lot better. That was the end of the Ferguson reign, and right. the level was higher. And when you look now at United, you're basically batting the Europa League side or Europa Conference side currently. They're in the Champions League still, but in terms of the current position in the table, the bar is a little bit lower, which might make it a little bit easier for Newcastle to usurp them. And of course, they've got the money. Like, there's a lot of parallels with City that way, and I can't deny that. And I mean, they're quite simply, if you asked around pretty much anyone who would you rather play right now, you'd probably rather play United than Newcastle. So I think to me, it says it all about where the two teams are at. And even though, of course, United are still ahead of Newcastle on the table, that's temporary and it could change this weekend. Yeah,
another weird week for Man United. I look at the league table, and often I'm sort of quick to go to goal difference. And when I look at goal difference and you run through those teams, it does add credence to the weirdness that is Man United this season. I think they've scored 16, conceded 16. The other teams around them all have a positive goal difference by some way. So what's the truth with Man United? Good victory against Everton, disappointing result against Galatasaray, nearly on their way out, or it's obviously going to go to the last game, very difficult one against Bayern Munich. What is the truth for you when it comes to Man United?
So we sort of touched on this many times last season. I don't think they're too dissimilar to where they were last season. Now, obviously, they beat Everton, Luton and Fulham in their last three. And I think people often go, they've won three. And we know that the narrative with United always shifts. It became they're the most informed team in the Premier League. But we've all watched football, and we've watched them these last few weeks. Yeah. They played against Everton. That could have been 3-3, and it probably should have been.
And no one really spoke about that for me. I thought, obviously, look, get a game state as well. You get a goal that is like 1 in a million. And that changes it.
And a pen.
And a pen. And then I understandably saw a lot of Man United fans wanting to use that as the first rung on the ladder of having confidence and playing well. But truthfully, Everton were the better side in the game that lost 3-0.
Exactly. And also, Everton weren't and aren't a very attacking side. Everton were having a go at Manchester United because they thought the game was there to be won. I want to come back to goal difference very quickly. Newcastle's is plus 17. United's is 0. So I think if you just sit and look at the table and go, but look where they are, 6th and 7th, you got to watch the games. United's form is win, loss, win, loss, loss, win, loss, win, win, loss, win, win, win. And now they've obviously gone and had the night in the Champions League. Dnewcastle are much more consistent, and you know exactly what you're going to get. But also it makes for a good game because then you don't know what you might get from United.
That's why you look at the table. I didn't realise United are the only team in the league to not draw a game yet, and that's chaotic. I mean that is not the recipe for a good side. Good sides do not lose 5 games, out of 13. And obviously they've got a little bit of quality there that's given 8 victories out of 13 so far. But look, you look at the very best teams, they draw the odd game, but you just don't lose is the mantra essentially. United, they very easily lose against teams that are perceived to be a lot lesser than their quality. And it's, 16 goals in 13 games. That's Nottingham Forest had that, and with all due respect, to Forest, I guess their aims would be very different to United at the start of the season, and it's essentially just sort of not good enough. The defensive record's a little bit better than I expected, to be fair, but they are too. When you see a team that up and down, like winning and losing but never drawing, it sort of hints at a lack of a plan. It's too open, too chaotic,
and I think importantly a lack of control.
Yeah,
and so one person I want to talk about, and then I want to talk about a couple of key men for Newcastle who are down to their bare bones. I think last last time I looked at it, I think 8 injuries for Man United, 11 for Newcastle. So many injuries in the Premier League this year. Kobbie Mainoo, and I think I've said this before. Now, I really, really like him as a player. I do. But what I always think is a very dangerous thing is when things aren't going well, what happens is people turn to the guy that's injured or the kids.
Yeah.
And I think with Chelsea, you could say like Nkunku's been that talking point. For Man United, it's Kobbie Mainoo, who received the ball more than any other player in that game against Everton, was superb, composed. When he came on again against Galatasaray, good on the ball, composed, but I mean defensively he wasn't able to stop things, although Onana essentially threw a couple in. Does Kobbie Mainoo need to start in this game to provide some kind of control?
The first thing I want to say is, and I think you're going to agree, slow down. Let's everyone just slow all the way down.
So I got a load of messages of people saying, are you going to do a video on Kobbie Mainoo? And I said no. And I actually said it to my team as well. I said, I'm not doing it until he plays Newcastle because he'll get pressed. Against Everton, it was a very different type of game. He needs to play a few more games before we do that kind of stuff. But people are hyping him up.
There's really good signs. Obviously, I'm not for a minute saying like he's not a good footballer, but you're coming up against the hardest working midfield in the league, away from home. Obviously, everyone left the Everton game going, Everton after the point deduction, it would have been a cauldron. Let's be honest, Garnacho scored the overhead kick and it was the atmosphere. It completely killed the atmosphere. And we did touch on that in the last episode. This time round, you go, do you want to throw him in against Newcastle away from him at St James's Park? Because at the moment, you've got a good thing there. Do you want to chuck him in and something goes wrong and now all of a sudden the guy that you're suddenly leaning on for a bit of help, like accidentally for a bit of help and a bit of hype, that will disappear so quickly if United lose 4-0 and he's the one giving the ball away every 2 minutes. He's a good player, but just slow down. He's a boy.
Would you play him for this
I
one?
personally wouldn't. I just think...
Just to sort of safeguard him?
Yeah, I think you just save him. Liverpool did this identical thing with Bajcetic last season, if you remember. He came in, Liverpool's midfield were all over the place, and he looked wonderful. And he is a very good footballer. Then he had one bad game. And then he had that really bad injury because we were burning him out, playing him week after week. This is a scenario where you've got McTominay, you've got Amrabat, I think Eriksen is fit as well. Play two of them three, get him on the bench, chuck him on at some point.
Absolutely.
Just take it easy with
He's
the guy.
just too young. He's too young. I mean, at that age, they're sort of, you remember being that age, don't you? 18, 19 years old. Everything's actually, that's 20 years ago. But it's like, it's pure enthusiasm and energy, and you get by because you feel fearless, but your confidence can be so fragile at that age as well. It only takes one mistake, and Newcastle are relentless. You know, Joe Linton, Bruno, it could destroy his confidence very quickly. And the United fan base, they probably make themselves. Once again, it's chaotic. You know, and
I totally get what you guys are saying. The only thing you want to win the game. He's really good. So do you know what I mean? Like you're making your chances of winning that game, not as good. And if you're not going to play him this one, you're not going to play him Bayern Munich as well.
You have to trust Amrabat though,
because he looks wonderful, and he's got a higher level of confidence than a lot of the players in that team.
Would you, as the manager, then have to go? I'll take the risk and start him. But if we lose against Newcastle and he's quote unquote found out, he's probably not going to play for the rest of the season because you can't keep throwing him in over and over again. Then you've definitely lost that one option that you might have had.
And he's only been playing because of injuries. Let's be honest as well. Like, I think in general,
he's been injured himself.
Yeah, to be fair, I mean, I think this has to be. I don't know. I think I just advise caution. I mean, ultimately, like, I'm a City fan. It's not really my problem at all. But like, it just, you feel it, and like people.
It's not the attitude, is it?
But you give Pep's got a lot of criticism for how slowly he introduced Phil Foden over the years, and I think the fact that he's rarely had any serious injuries, and he's only 23 years old now, achieved so much, and he's still improving. I think that's it's something to take heed of.
In terms of Newcastle, two key players for me. Anthony Gordon, we spoke about last week, and said he really needed to step up for them. He certainly did that in that game against Chelsea. I think his movement is absolutely world class. I think he's so important. I was thinking about who is important to Newcastle, and I would say in terms of importance that comes with being irreplaceable. Now, Kieran Trippier is crucial, but you've got someone like Livramento who can step in terms of having someone who can play at the level that Anthony Gordon can in that position. And like you say with Kobbie Mainoo, in that central area, Anthony Gordon is a problem, both starting out wide but then moving into those central positions, and then the other being probably Bruno Guimaraes for me in terms of a player that if you take him out, that's very difficult to replace. But Anthony Gordon's so crucial for me. The other one, this is a great stat, we just want to get this to you, so concentrate, okay? The conversion rate of Isak is 37%. He's flying, but he's under the radar as well.
It's because he's been in and outside. He's been injured. I think
that'll always be his thing, won't it? It feels like.
Yeah, but also I think Eddie Howe's managed him perfectly because when he's had Callum Wilson fit, he's played Wilson, and then he's leaned on Isak. Now he's really leaning on him and saying, "We need you to keep going." He's been outstanding for Newcastle. Goals aside, his overall play, I think, is perfect for what Newcastle are trying to build. They can hit the ball into him. He can hold it up. He gets into wide areas, takes players on. And when you've got Almiron coming in from that side and Gordon from the other side, it's a little bit, I won't say Liverpool-esque, but you've got your two wingers that want to get inside the box, and your striker can drop off and also create, but he can also score as well. Yeah. There's an interesting stat here. Dominic Calvert-Lewin received 4 progressive passes against United, and he bullied that defence. Newcastle will get the ball into Isak a lot more often. United have just had the horrible evening in Galatasaray. They have the journey back, and all those things included. St James's part of the season, I looked at Newcastle's record. Not only do they not concede goals at home, they've beaten Arsenal at home, and you remember what that was like. They battered Chelsea at home. They only narrowly lost to Liverpool. They are the most dangerous team at home in the league this season.
Okay, prediction time. I'll go first. I'll give you guys a second. I really believe, even with the injuries, I think Newcastle make Man United quit in this game for the exact reasons that you're talking about. Because I think, say, the defensive transition is a thing that isn't spoken about with Newcastle a lot of the time, but the tenacity, the identity that Eddie Howe has with this team, that underdog spirit that they're retaining for as long as possible, it's pretty phenomenal, and it gets them victories, and it makes the other teams quit. And I think that's what will happen with Man United. And the thing with Man United, the loss of energy in a game like that one against Galatasaray on a pitch like that as well, I think is a massive, massive problem for them. And I think they'll get a bit leggy, and I think they'll get run into the ground. I think Newcastle will win this one quite comfortably. I think it could. I've got a 3-0 in my head. I think they'll do them pretty badly, despite the injuries.
The Chelsea game again, Newcastle. It could be that 3 or 4 goals.
And they're going to be. There's a concern there for that Bayern Munich game as well, which will play in Man United's mind a little bit, I think, as well. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think the thing about Newcastle, they're a team that sort of maximises every ounce of talent they've got. Eddie Howe does a wonderful job there, and they're such a brilliantly organised side, and they've got so many players. Football seems to be trending to the way of having players that can sort of contribute to every phase of play, in terms of like a defender, a midfield defender can get forward and attack, or a midfielder that can link the defence and the attack really well. And you get people like Anthony Gordon, who starts at wide but great drifting central. They seem to be so organised and so structured, and have so many hard-working players. The antithesis of United at the moment. United seem to be a little bit individualistic, relying on moments of magic from, I don't know, Rashford or whatever. Or
how's Garnacho not the first?
The exact example right now, and I don't know. I feel like their floors will be ripped open. There's not many more suitable teams to play United than Newcastle right now, I reckon.
So Newcastle win?
Yeah, I think comfortably as well, probably up 3 goals.
Okay, well.
I'm going to go 2-0. United haven't scored in the last few against Newcastle. I don't see anyone beating Newcastle at St James's Park unless it's Liverpool. So I'm going to go 2-0.
Nearly had the Newcastle fans on board there, and then just chuck that one in there. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below.